Okay. All right. How's everybody doing on Facebook? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. We're broadcasting live. We're broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio, and we're also broadcasting on Facebook Live. And for some reason on Blog Talk Radio, it dropped, but we're going to keep going. We'll try to reconnect here to Blog Talk. I'm not sure what's happening with Skype. So we'll talk about Donald Trump's comments. Trump attacks protections for immigrants from S-hole countries. He actually said shithole countries, according to the quote. Washington Post is reporting this story. All the news outlets have it. You saw us posting about it here on our Facebook fan pages. So we'll talk about that breaking news story as well. How's everybody doing here on Facebook? We know the movie The Black Panther, it is pre-selling, is selling out in pre-sales. Okay. Setting records as well. It doesn't come out to February 16th, the movie The Black Panther. Okay. Audio's good. I take it. All right. So we have that going on also. People commenting on my shirt. They like my shirt as well. All right. How's everybody doing? Okay. And then also, so we'll talk about that. And then there was a story I talked about on my show Sunday night. I do Sunday nights on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation in Detroit, local radio here in Detroit, the African History Network show. There was a story I talked about Sunday night coming out of Cartersville, Georgia. 63 people were arrested at a house party for less than 1 ounce of marijuana. 63 people were arrested at a house party for less than 1 ounce of marijuana. Crazy story coming out of Cartersville, Georgia. I've been to Atlanta. I was just in Atlanta December 29th. I don't know what Cartersville is. Okay. But this story deals with why marijuana should be made legal. Okay. Across the board. And we're going to talk some about that. We'll talk a little bit about the history of drug laws as well, and why marijuana was made illegal basically in 1937, and was based upon lies also. Okay. So we'll deal with that. Everybody watching, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. So we got to talk about this story done with marijuana. And then also you got this crazy story coming out of Kansas, the state of Kansas. And you have a state representative out of Kansas named Steve Alford. And he actually said at a meeting in front of all white people, all Europeans, they were asking about decriminalizing marijuana, making marijuana legal. And he talked about how African Americans, one of the reasons why marijuana was made illegal is because African Americans reacted to marijuana differently and could not handle marijuana because of their genetic makeup. Okay. We'll talk about that some as well. All right. Because this goes right to why marijuana was made illegal in the first place, and it was made illegal based upon lies. Okay. So we'll deal with that story. Then also Michigan State University is reporting that they are receiving almost $1.5 million to create an online slavery database. That's good news coming out of Michigan State University. And I live in Michigan. I live in Detroit, as many of you know. So we have to talk about that story. And then the book, The New Jim Crow. The New Jim Crow. Many people are familiar with the book, The New Jim Crow, from Michelle Alexander. You've heard me talk about the book before, right? The New Jim Crow. Well, that book was banned in the state of New Jersey, in the prisons in New Jersey. Okay. We're going to talk about that and what happened subsequently. Why was this book banned? Okay. What is in that book that they don't want people to know? Then we'll also deal with this date in African American history, So we have a lot to talk about, not a lot of time to do it in. And I want to remind you, those in the Detroit area, hey, I am doing a double lecture, a 2-day lecture series, I should say, coming up this coming weekend, Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th, at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, located at is located now at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Okay. The first day I will deal with, so we know this is Dr. King weekend coming up. So the first day I will deal with the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The revolutionary will not be televised on the Televised. The Distortion of the Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. That's Saturday, January 13th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Free event, donations accepted. The second day, I will deal with African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump. Voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. That's on the second day, Sunday, January 14th. Okay, so come on out. Visit AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information. All right. Okay, so let's jump into this first story here about Donald Trump. All right. So Washington Post has this story. Trump attacks protections for immigrants from shithole countries. This is what he said. And they're quoting him tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on All In with Chris Hayes on MSNBC. Joanne Reed sat in, and Joanne Reed, her mother is from Guyana, British Guyana, and her father is from the Congo. Okay. So she is the parent, she is the child of immigrants, Joanne Reed. And she went off on Trump tonight. So President Trump, or Donald Trump, because I don't call him president, he's not my president, grew frustrated with lawmakers today, January 11th, 2018, in the Oval Office when they floated restoring protections for immigrants from Haiti, El Salvador, and African countries as part of a bipartisan immigration deal, according to several people briefed on the meeting. Okay. And it's reported that he said that why are we having all these people from S-hole countries come here? Why are we having all these people from S-hole countries come here? Trump said, according to these people, referring to countries mentioned by the lawmakers. Trump then suggested that the United States should instead bring more people from countries like Norway, whose prime minister he met with on Wednesday. Now, Norway is predominantly white country, predominantly European country. Trump, according to a White House official, also suggested he would be open to more immigrants from Asian countries because they help the United States economically. Okay, so Asians, all right, are more tolerable to many Europeans because of the selective immigration. When it comes to Asians, they're more tolerable to many Europeans than Hispanics or people from African countries, Haitians, those coming from the Caribbean. Okay, now this is not an attack on Asians. We're just dealing with this. Now, let me adjust the lighting here right quick. Just 1 second. Let me flip this off. Okay, I wanted to adjust the lighting here. All right, so it's important to understand this. Okay, it's important to understand what's taking place here. All right, now, what we have to understand about white supremacy and racism, and if you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. What we have to understand about white supremacy and racism is that it pits groups of oppressed people against each other. It pits groups of oppressed people against each other and has them fighting one another, okay, to maintain white supremacy. All right. So, and it benefits the 1%. So this is what we have to understand. All right. So let's continue with this. And then I'm going to go to the article also from NBCnews.com. Now, those watching on Facebook, and we're having problems with Blog Talk, is not connecting. So I can't worry about it. I'm going to upload. We're going to upload the audio of this show after the show's over. We'll upload it to our Blog Talk Radio page. Okay. And then it'll be available on iTunes also. All right. So let me do this. Those watching here on Facebook, hey, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. We're posting a link of the article from the Washington Post. Trump attacks protections for immigrants from S-hole countries. Okay, they actually say shithole. They spell it out, quote unquote, right? And then they've updated it. Trump derides protections from immigrants from S-hole countries. Okay, we've got that. And then also we have it from NBCnews.com. Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as S-hole countries. Okay, so we've got it there also, NBCnews.com. All right. Now, this is the same white supremacist Donald Trump that I warned you about leading up to the 2016 election. If you listen to my podcast, you listen to my radio shows, we dealt with Trump's history. Okay. And these comments and the comments around Christmas time, talking about Haitians, right. And Nigerians, and saying Nigerians would not want to go back to their huts once they come to America and see how good America is. This is consistent with Donald Trump and who we knew Donald Trump was. All right. So this is not a surprise. I'm just glad it's being documented. Okay, so share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Okay, let's continue here. All right, so when we look at the article from the Washington Post, it says that Trump then suggested that the United States should instead bring more people from countries such as Norway, whose prime minister he met with Wednesday. Trump, according to a White House official, also suggested he would be open to more immigrants from Asian countries because he felt they help the United States economically. Okay. In addition, Trump singled out Haiti. He singled out Haiti, telling lawmakers that immigrants from that country, Haiti, must be left out of any deal, these people said. Okay. This is what was reported. He said that any deal. Okay. He told lawmakers that immigrants from the nation of Haiti must be left out of any deal. So the question was asked, why do we need, Trump asked the question, why do we need more Haitians? Why do we need more Haitians? Okay. And this was according to people familiar with the meeting. He said, take them out. Now, lawmakers were taken aback by the comments, according to people familiar with their reactions. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, and Richard J. Durbin, Democrat from Illinois, these both two U.S. senators, had proposed cutting the visa lottery program by 50% and then prioritizing countries already in the system, a White House official said. Now, a White House spokesman defended Trump's position on immigration without directly addressing his comments. White House officials did not dispute the account. So this is important for people to understand. Read the article from the Washington Post. We posted the link here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll also post it right here on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. The White House is not disputing that Trump said this. The White House is not saying that Trump did not make these statements, because he did make these statements, and it's suspected that they're not going to dispute that he didn't say this, because this is going to play very well with his base. And we know his base has been eroding. If we look at national polls, Quinnipiac polls and things like this, he's down in the low 30s approval rating. Okay. And when if you notice, when he has falling approval ratings, when another shoe is about to drop in the Russia investigation. Okay. We know they're talking about now about Trump being actually interviewed by Robert Mueller. Okay. Months ago, he said he would have no problem being interviewed with Robert Mueller. Right. He said no problem. He has nothing to hide. No collusion, no collusion. Now he's saying we'll see. Okay. So when his back is against the wall, he either goes to attacking Hillary Clinton, or he goes to attacking NFL players who take a knee, African Americans, right? He goes to attacking African Americans on Twitter, like Jamel Hill, all right? Or he goes after African immigrants or immigrants. Okay. This is his playbook. All right. When his back is against the wall, he plays that white supremacist card to galvanize his base and distract people from what's going on. Okay, so let's continue. So we just posted a link again from the story from the Washington Post. Okay, so let's continue with this here. A White House spokesman defended Trump's position on immigration without directly addressing his remarks. White House officials did not dispute his account. Very important to understand. White House officials did not dispute his account. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow at the White House press secretary conference, the daily conference, right? That Sarah Huckabee Sanders gives each day, and she stands there and lies, every day. It's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow, right? Now, this is behind 200,000 Salvadorians possibly being forced to leave the U.S. as Trump ends immigration protection as well. Okay. Now, the article goes on to say from the Washington Post, quote, certain Washington politicians choose to fight for foreign countries, but Trump will always fight for the American people. OK, spokesman Raj Shah, SHAH, said in a statement issued after the Washington Post first reported. Trump's first reported Trump's remarks, quote, like other nations that have merit-based immigration, Trump is fighting for permanent solutions that make our country stronger by welcoming those who can contribute to our society, grow our country economy, and assimilate into our great nation, end quote. So basically what he's talking about is becoming more white. This is what he's talking about. All right. Now, Trump built his candidacy and presidency around hard stances on immigration, vowing to build a wall along the Mexican border and cut legal immigration by half, among other positions. OK. Officials at the Department of Homeland Security have increased immigration raids. We saw the raids on 100 7-Elevens, right? I think there's about 100 7-Elevens, including dozens this week at convenience stores across the country. Now, what's interesting is, where are the raids looking for undocumented immigrants from Europe? Where are the raids looking for undocumented white immigrants? That largely does not exist. See, there's a fear of the browning of America. OK, and I talked about this yesterday. I was on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation on Cliff Russell's show. And you saw the video here. We broadcasted on our Facebook fan page. You saw that video. And also I was on Spud's show as well. Real Talk with Spud. OK, and we broadcasting here on Facebook Live. There's a fear by some white people, not all white people. There's a fear by some white people. OK, now we're still broadcasting on Facebook. Everybody can hear me OK and see me all right. There's a fear by some white people of the browning of America. By 2043, okay, 2043, okay, no one race will be dominant by numbers in the U.S., okay? No one race will be dominant in the U.S., okay? Let's post this here in the U.S. All right, so what happens is you have a lot of white people trying to preserve genetic white survival. They're trying to preserve genetic white survival. Many of them know their time is up. Many of them know that they are on borrowed time and on stolen land. OK. All right. And they have a fear of the browning of America. So what's happening is they're trying to manipulate the laws to keep more people of color out and to make this more of a white nation. This is what Make America Great Again is all about. Now, not all white people subscribe to this. Not all white people voted for Donald Trump, but a lot did. We do know 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump. Majority of white men voted for Donald Trump as well. OK, for various reasons, largely because of white supremacy, or what they call what is it called? I forgot the exact term. I'll pull it up. Atlanta Black Star. The Atlantic had a good article about this. White anxiety, cultural anxiety. That's what they call it. Cultural anxiety. That's a euphemism for white supremacy. OK, now those in the Detroit area, you know, this weekend I'm doing 2 presentations at the new Nanny's Knowledge Cafe, Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. And on Sunday, my presentation is on African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. OK, African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. And one of the things I'm going to deal with is how Donald Trump became president based upon the climate taking place in this country, right? And you had cultural anxiety taking place, and it's still taking place. And this is what we're dealing with, okay? And another word for cultural anxiety is white supremacy. This is what we're dealing with, okay? So we're going to post this information here on the thread of the broadcast as well, all right? And we were trying to broadcast on Blog Talk Radio, having problems on Blog Talk. I don't know what that is. So we got to keep going here. OK, so let's keep going with this. We're going to come to some of your comments here in just a minute. All right. And be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. You already know that if you want to support the African History Network. OK, so let's continue here. All right. And you just got to bear with me because I'm doing a job of about 3 and 4 people here, right? Okay, let's continue. And share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also, okay? All right, so let's go back to this article here from the Washington Post from tonight, posted at 7:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Trump attacks protections for immigrants from S-hole countries, shithole countries. They actually spell it out here, right? They actually spell it out. Okay, so the president's remarks. Okay, let me back up here. Trump's comments Thursday. Trump built his candidacy and presidency around hard stances on immigration, vowing to build a wall along the Mexican border that he actually said Mexico was going to pay for. Now he wants to get $18 billion from taxpayers to pay for this wall that he lied to the American people about and said that Mexico was going to pay for. And Mexico said, get the hell out of here. They said, we're not paying for this wall. And these ignorant people believe that Mexico was going to pay for this wall. Okay. And he also ran on the platform of cutting legal immigration by half, among other positions. Now, officials at the Department of Homeland Security have increased immigration raids, including dozens this week at convenience stores across the country, like we saw at 7-Eleven. Now, Trump's comments on Thursday, January 11th, 2018, also put further scrutiny on his long-standing tendency to make racially charged remarks, including attacks on protesting African-American athletes and his claim that there were fine people on both sides after neo-Nazis rioted in Charlottesville, Virginia. That was August 12th. 2017, when Heather Heyer was killed. Okay. And also, if you note, also the other thing, Trump is for keeping the Confederate monuments. He's for keeping the Confederate monuments. Okay. Now, Trump falsely claimed for years that President Barack Obama was not born in the United States and took out advertisements calling for the death penalty to be brought back in the state of New York for members of the Central Park Five. These were 4 African-American youth and 1 Hispanic youth who were accused of a brutal rape in New York and later exonerated. He took out a full-page ad in 4 New York daily newspapers calling for the death penalty to be brought back so the Central Park Five would be put to death. Last year, towards the end of the campaign, Donald Trump did not acknowledge that the police exonerated the Central Park Five. He said that they did not deserve any type of restitution because they were paid a settlement. They were wrongfully convicted. DNA evidence cleared them. Okay. Donald Trump did not acknowledge that the DNA evidence cleared them. He said that they did not deserve any type of restitution. He said the police said they were guilty, so he believed they were guilty. He doubled down on this after all the evidence came out. Okay. Now, Trump's remarks were quickly met with scorn from Democrats and some Republicans and could throw another wrench into bipartisan discussions on immigration, which had shown promise in recent days, according to legislators. Representative Luis Gutierrez, a Democrat from Illinois, from the House of Representatives, said the comments, quote, will shake the confidence that people have, end quote, in the ongoing immigration policy talks. Quote, Democrats and Republicans in the Senate made a proposal. The answer is this racist outburst of the president. How can you take him seriously? He's an idiot. How can you take him seriously? He's an idiot who speaks on a 4th grade level also, as we see the reporting from AOL.com in an article entitled Donald Trump Speaks at a 4th Grade Level, the lowest of the last 15 U.S. presidents, according to analysis. All right. Check out this article here, AOL.com. We'll post it here on the thread of the broadcast. President Donald Trump connects with American people by using a language that even a 4th grader could understand, according to a recently published analysis by FactBase, BASE, on the speech patterns of the last 15 U.S. presidents. The analysis looked at the first 30,000 words each president spoke in office and ranked each of the president's speech going back to President Herbert Hoover using the Fleisch-Kincaid grade level scale and several other tests that commonly analyze English language difficulty levels. Among those at the top of the list were President Herbert Hoover and Jimmy Carter, who the research suggested spoke at an 11th grade level of communicating with the public. Former President Barack Obama made 3rd place, scoring at a high 9th grade level, and Donald Trump was found to have the worst ranking since President Harry Truman in 1945 by scoring at a 4th grade level, because this is the level that this juvenile thinks at also. Okay. The 45th president's vocabulary was assessed by data gleaned from his tweets and spoken word, with recent examples where the president described himself to be, quote, like really smart, end quote, which has been typical of the president's colloquial style that he has built a reputation for. He's an idiot, okay? And he speaks on a fourth grade level because that's his mentality also. Now, people call him 45. So we just posted this link here on our Facebook fan page, on the thread of the broadcast here on Facebook. That's from AOL.com. Other news sources carried that article as well. So check that out. People call him 45. We need to stop calling him 45. I don't call him 45. Now, I said 45 because it's in the article. There have only been 44 U.S. presidents under the U.S. Constitution. To call him 45 means that you're counting President Stephen Grover Cleveland twice, because Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms, 1885 to 1889, 1893 to 1897. He served 2 non-consecutive terms. Okay, there've only been 44 U.S. presidents. Trump is the 44th. That's under the U.S. Constitution. I'm not talking about the Articles of the Confederation, okay, which was different. So we need to stop calling him 45. All right. Now, so check out that article from AOL.com. All right, everybody, please share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. Please share this. How's everybody doing tonight? All right. Hey, for those just tuning in, I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. You could probably tell I'm a talk show host. We're broadcasting live the African History Network show. We were trying to broadcast on Blog Talk Radio so you can call in, but we're having technical difficulties. But we'll take your comments here, so don't worry about that. Okay. How's everybody doing? We got people from Chicago and all over listening. Those in Detroit area know I'll be doing a double lecture this weekend, the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, 71 Oakman Avenue, Highland Park, Michigan. Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Okay. And we have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll post it again here on the thread also. Okay. And it's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. All right. So let's go back to this. Let's go back to this story here. Somebody posted ignorance is bliss. We're going to come to some of your comments here in just a minute. So just bear with me. Okay. Just bear with me. I got a lot to get through here with this crazy, crazy story. All right. So Representative Luis Gutierrez, who was on All In with Chris Hayes tonight, Joanne Reed was guest hosting. He said the comments, quote, will shake the confidence that people have, end quote, in the ongoing immigration policy talks. Democrats and Republicans in the Senate made a proposal. The answer is this racist outburst of the president. How can you take him seriously? Republicans don't believe in immigration. It's always been about people of color and keeping them out of this country. Okay. Now, what's interesting is all these Europeans, they are descendants of immigrants, and a lot of their people came here illegally, and they're on stolen land, stolen from indigenous African people and stolen from Native Americans. So they talk about Haiti, right? So to understand Haiti, you got to understand the Haitian Revolution. And you have to understand France. You have to understand the Haitians fighting against France, 1791 to 1803, declaring their independence in 1804, right? So they defeat Napoleon Bonaparte. France, to finance the Haitian Revolution, they sell the land that they had here in this land we call the United States of America. They sell that land in what's known as the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. So the U.S. gets 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre, 828,000 square miles of land for less than 3 cents an acre for about $15 million. Okay. Now, the majority of the land that France sold, they didn't even own legally. The majority of that land belonged to Native Americans and probably had some, Black Indians, things like this. But the majority of the land that France sold, they did not even own. You can check out the article from history.com, history.com. That is the official website of the History Channel, history.com, and search for Louisiana Purchase. Okay. And they break this down there. So here you have people who are descendants of immigrants, and some coming here illegally, right? Trying to lock out other immigrants from coming here. And what this is about is a fear of some white people of the browning of America. And they have a fear of becoming a racial minority, so-called racial minority. And the reason why they fear that is because, by 2043, no one ethnic group or race will be dominant as far as numerically in this country. And many white people have a fear of becoming a racial minority because they know for hundreds of years they have mistreated other so-called racial minorities, and they're afraid what they did to other people will be done unto them. And this is what you see, that you see them trying to preserve genetic white survival. All right. Now, Representative Cedric L. Richmond, Democrat from Louisiana, who's the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, posted on Twitter today. He said that Trump's remarks, quote, are further proof that his Make America Great Again agenda is really a Make America White Again agenda, end quote. And yes, it is. This is all about cultural anxiety, which I warned people about during the election. And not only that, Make America Great Again, Trump got that from Ronald Reagan's campaign. When Ronald Reagan campaign slogan, one of the times Ronald Reagan ran for president, it was "Let's make America great again." Trump calls it "Make America Great Again." How original. Now, some Republicans also raised objections. Now, Representative Mia Love, Republican from Utah, right, who is Haitian, and she's Haitian, but she's a Republican, and I usually disagree with her on most things, right? Her family's from Haiti, and she said in a statement that Trump's remarks were, quote, unkind, divisive, elitist, and fly in the face of our nation's values. This behavior is unacceptable from the leader of our nation, end quote. She said, my grandmother used to say, I don't know what this is. It's in Haitian. But it translates, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. This was said by Representative Adriana Espaillat, Democrat from New York. At first I thought it was Haitian, but I'm looking at it and I see some words in Spanish. My Spanish is very, very rusty. Okay. Who represents most of Harlem and is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, which shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti. And you got to go back to the history of Columbus, right? And going into Haiti and Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, all that, and them splitting that island into two. Okay, so if he's walking around with white supremacists and supporting them, this kind of talk doesn't surprise me. This is what Representative Adriana Espaillat said. Okay. Now, the New York Times also reported last year that Trump said immigrants from Haiti have AIDS. The White House denied that report. But tonight, the White House is not denying this report here of what Trump said, referring to Haitians and African countries as S-hole countries. OK, Democrats were quick to note that Trump employs Haitians at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida and that he praised Haitian Americans during a roundtable in Miami in September. Okay, September 2017. Quote, whether you, oh no, actually I think this was 2016 during the election. They just showed it tonight on MSNBC. They showed that clip. Whether you vote for me or don't vote for me, I really want to be your greatest champion, and I will be your champion, Trump said at a roundtable. That was from September 2016. Okay. So you can check out the rest of this article here from Washington Post, front page story from the Washington Post. I want to go to this other story here from NBCnews.com. I want to hit this other story here from NBCnews.com also. Okay. So if we look at this, and how's everybody doing? Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. We're going to go to some of your comments now, and then we'll get this story. We'll get this article from Washington, from NBCnews.com. On this story, Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as shithole countries. This is what this white supremacist said, because he is a white supremacist. Okay, I'm not into name calling, but this is what it is. Okay, all right. So Jamal Myers, what's up, frat? Happy Founders Day. It was January 9th, my frat brother, Jamal Mize. All right, what's up, man? Okay, so share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. And everybody, be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, okay? If you like this type of information, you can read my articles that I write. We have podcasts of our shows. There, all of my DVD lectures are there. Also, you can order a lot of information at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, podcast from Michael Imhotep. You can read my articles. We have a recommended reading list of books there as well. Okay. Also. All right. So let's look at some of your comments here. Okay. Ciola Gilchrist said those countries built this country. Alan said his statements are being used against him in court. Absolutely. Absolutely. His Trump statements on Twitter are being used against him in court when it comes to the immigration bans and things like this. Let's see. Okay, Madison in Youngstown, Ohio. Christie, open your heart, live. Everyone must index for peace. It's law. Boulay said many white supremacist countries won't love Haiti because Haiti has destroyed the slavery. Most of the countries that have their independence is because of Haiti. Yeah, it deals with the Haitian Revolution. And you all know I've talked about the documentary 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti. This deals with the history of the Haitian Revolution. We have it available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti. So if you want to learn about the history of the Haitian Revolution, right, history of Haiti, that ties into what we're seeing with right now and why there's a hatred by some people in America of Haiti also. He is not going to visit any African country, Maury said. Okay, now let's scroll back and look at some of your comments because people have been commenting for a while. And Samuel said, Samuel checking in from Columbus. Tony's in Memphis, listening from Portsmouth, Virginia. Darius, Ciola, San Antonio in the house checking in. Let's see here. Bobby, let's see. I read what you said. Trump said, I don't want to hear only because I'm sorry this kind of thing is being said. And I'm embarrassed. I love our Lord and it hurts my heart. Okay, this is Bobby. He appears to be a white gentleman saying it hurts his heart also. He's sad to hear this type of information. Wava Johnson said, preach. Denise Brown said, are we really surprised though? No, we're not surprised, but it's good when it's documented. It's good when these types of things are documented because what people have to understand is that you have white supremacists like Stephen Miller, who this, what's the day? Thursday, this past Sunday, I think it was this past Sunday, he was on one of the news shows. Was it no, he was interviewed by Jake Tapper on CNN. Stephen Miller. Okay, you've got these people actually crafting policies in the White House. You got Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, Attorney General, okay, who's basically anti-immigration, reversing President Obama's stance on federal prosecutors prosecuting for marijuana in states that have passed laws to legalize marijuana medicinally or recreationally. These are the type of people crafting laws right now. Okay, this is what I warn people about. All right, so Boulay said there's some Haitians in Florida who voted for this orange man. I wonder how the Haitians who voted for this low-level ignorant feel now. And some of them are just ignorant and unaware. Here in Detroit, we had some Chaldeans. We had some Chaldeans who voted for Donald Trump, and African Americans were telling them, look, this guy, you don't want to vote for him. This guy is anti-immigrant, blah, blah, blah. And they thought we were playing. Now he's rounding up some of their relatives and getting them out of here. Okay. So no, this guy is dangerous. The Haitians wore the Europeans out, Twyla Muhammad said. You are correct. So when you study the Haitian Revolution, not only did the Haitians defeat the French, they also defeated the Spanish and the British, because the Spanish and the British were allies as well of the French. Okay. Let's see. Sheila McKnight said by 2030, all school-age children would be the same color. I think you should go back and check that information. By 2030, all school-age children are not going to be the same color. By 2030, no. Now, there may not be one dominant race, or by 2030, the majority will be people of color, because the birth rates now of the children in the country, it's a little more than 50% are non-white. Okay, Wallace said, I like the t-shirt. You can get this t-shirt from PIOclothing.com, Power in One Clothing, PIOclothing.com, PIOclothing.com for this t-shirt. Okay, tell them Michael Imhotep sent you. Michael Imhotep sent you. Okay, guys, we need to work out like I need to become a spokesperson for PIO clothing, man, because anytime I wear this shirt and I broadcast, people ask, your sales go through the roof. So we need to talk about an endorsement deal. So Demetria Dixon said, as long as other minorities strive to be accepted by whites, the white people will never be a majority. But what's interesting is a lot of Europeans don't accept these ethnic groups who some are trying to be white. Hispanics are attacked. Hispanics are attacked by Europeans, by Donald Trump supporters. All right, you have to understand this. They don't consider, majority of Europeans don't consider Hispanics as white, even though you have some Hispanics that have white ancestry, because Hispanics are, number one, it's a language group. So they basically group people from different nations whose first language is Spanish, right? And because these various nations were conquered by Spain. This is why you have to go back and study Columbus and his 4 voyages, okay? Because he's conquering these nations on behalf of Spain: Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Panama, things like this. They go into Brazil, okay? Then Brazil is going to fall under control of the Portuguese, right? But they go into Brazil. So the reason why these various nations speak Spanish and these people who are Hispanic, the reason why they speak Spanish is because they came from nations that were conquered by Spain. But what happens is the Hispanics are basically a combination of people who are descendants of Europeans, Africans, and Native Americans. They are a mixture. Some are Afro-Latino, like Amara La Negra from Love and Hip Hop, the new Love and Hip Hop show. And she's an Afro-Latina. Okay. And you have people just as dark as her in Colombia, Nicaragua, Honduras, Panama. They just don't show them to you on the Travel Channel. They don't show you people that look like her on the Travel Channel. You have them down in Puerto Rico. With most of the footage in Puerto Rico covering the hurricanes, right? They showed you the lighter skinned Puerto Ricans. They didn't show you the darker ones. The darker ones are down there also. Okay, so now somebody posted something about impeachment. Okay, Demetria checking in from Pontiac. So those in the Detroit area, you know I'm doing a 2-day lecture series, right? 71 Oakman Avenue at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th, this weekend. Free event, donations accepted. Come on out. We got the information at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, I'm going to post the information again. First day, so we know this is Dr. King weekend coming up, right? And Monday's Dr. King Day. And let me just say this quickly. We're going to jump back on this story about Trump. People that know me, have seen my lectures, you know I don't do the normal Dr. King Day presentation. I don't do those Negro presentations, right? I deal with the revolutionary Dr. King. So my presentation on Saturday, January 13th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The revolutionary will not be televised on the television. That's day 1. Day 2, Sunday, January 14th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Same location. 71 Oakman Avenue, Highland Park, Michigan, the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. Okay, so we have that information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And you can check that out there also. We posted here on the thread of the broadcast as well. Okay, so somebody posted about impeachment, right? So, and shout out to Baba Victor Gibson. He posted here, he's going to be at my presentation Saturday. Okay. So somebody posted about impeachment. Now, this is what you have to understand about impeachment. I talked about this on Cliff Russell's show yesterday on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. I'll be on Pastor David Bullock's show on 9:10 a.m. Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday morning. And I'll be on Cliff Russell's show again Friday, sometime between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So we'll broadcast on Facebook Live again for that as well. Here's what you have to understand about impeachment, right? Impeachment does not mean removal from office. So the impeachment process for impeaching a president comes from Article 1 and Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. Okay. And this deals with especially Article 2, Section 4, which deals with high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay. So the impeachment process starts in the House of Representatives, and articles of impeachment are drawn up. Okay. And then they take the members of the House of Representatives. There are 435 members of the House of Representatives. Right now, to get anything passed, you need 218 votes, right? So they take a vote to put the president on trial. Impeachment basically means to put the president on trial. Then the trial is held. Then it goes to the U.S. Senate. So the trial is held in the U.S. Senate. Okay. The 100 U.S. senators are the jurors. The judge that presides over the trial is the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. So in December 1998, when President Bill Clinton was impeached, because he was impeached, it was Chief Justice William Rehnquist who presided over the trial. Okay. So even though he was impeached, he was not removed from office, because impeachment does not mean removal from office. This is what people have to understand. So to find the president guilty, right, and remove him from office, you need 2/3 majority vote in the U.S. Senate, okay, for a president to be found guilty. 2/3 majority vote. So it's basically 66 out of 100, or maybe 67 out of 100. Okay. So, this is what people have to understand. So under this current Congress, the impeachment is not going to happen, because you have about 239 Republicans to 193 Democrats in the House of Representatives. Now, when the House of Representatives flips because of the midterm elections, then then you'll see impeachment process really begin. But personally, I think they should wait until Robert Mueller's investigation is over with. Okay. So they really have the hard facts to present and to deal with when they actually have the trial. Okay. Because if you just make it look like this is partisan, it's going to backfire on you. If you're just trying to make it look like it's partisan and you're trying to remove a president because of partisanship, it's going to backfire on you. Okay. All right. So there was one article I was trying to pull up. Let me see something here. Okay. Check out this. So we talked about Asian Americans a few minutes ago, right? Check out this article here from Washington Post. Washington Post did 2 articles dealing with Asian Americans. The real reason the U.S. became less racist towards Asian Americans. The real reason the U.S. became less racist toward Asian Americans, because Asian Americans are looked at as the model immigrant, right? But that's because of selective immigration. Between 1940 and 1970, something remarkable happened to Asian Americans. Not only did they surpass African Americans in average household earnings, so median household income now for Asian Americans is about $81,000. It's the highest of any ethnic group in the country. But they also closed the wage gap for whites. Many people credit this upward mobility to investments in education. But according to a recent study by Brown University economist Nathaniel Hilger, Hilger, schooling rates among Asian Americans did not change all that significantly during those 3 decades. Instead, Hilger's research suggests that Asian Americans started to earn more because their fellow Americans became less racist towards them. Let me repeat this. Nathaniel Hilger's research suggests that Asian Americans started to earn more money because their fellow Americans became less racist towards them. How did this happen? About the same time that Asian Americans were climbing the social economic ladder, they also experienced a major shift in their public image. At the outset of the 20th century, Asian Americans had often been portrayed as threatening, exotic, and degenerate. Okay. At the beginning of the 20th century, early 1900s. But by the 1950s and 1960s, the idea of the model minority had begun to take root. Newspapers often glorified Asian Americans as industrious, law-abiding citizens who kept their heads down and never complained. Some people think that racism toward Asians diminished because Asians, quote unquote, proved themselves through their actions. But that is only a sliver of the truth. Then as now, the stories of successful Asians were elevated, while the stories of less successful Asians were diminished. As historian Ellen Wu, W.U., explains in her book, The Color of Success, The model minority stereotype has a fascinating origin, one that's tangled up in geopolitics, the Cold War, and the Civil Rights Movement. To combat racism, minorities in the United States have often attempted to portray themselves as upstanding citizens capable of assimilating into mainstream culture. Let me repeat this. To combat racism, so-called minorities in the United States have often attempted to portray themselves as upstanding citizens capable of assimilating into mainstream culture. Asian Americans were no different, Ellen Wu writes. Some, like the Chinese, sought respectability by promoting stories about their obedient children and their traditional family values. The Japanese pointed to their wartime service as proof of their shared Americanness. The Japanese pointed to their wartime service as proof of their shared Americanness. African Americans in the 1940s made very similar appeals because we served in World War I, we served in World War II, we served in the American Revolutionary War, we served in the War of 1812, we served in the Korean War, Vietnam, all of the wars we served in. Civil War, all of them. African Americans in the 1940s made very similar appeals, but in post-war, in the post-war moment, okay, World War II ends in 1945, right? Baby boomer generation starts 1946. Ellen Wu in her book argues it was only convenient for political leaders to hear the Asian voices. Asians are looked at as less threatening, number one. This is not an attack on them. This is to understand white supremacy and racism. Two, Asians usually are lighter skinned. When you understand trying to preserve genetic white survival, right, on a planet that's less than 10% European, those who have the highest concentrations of melanin they get the brunt of racism because they have the greater propensity to genetically eliminate white people off the face of the earth. This is why you have one drop rules in this country, to preserve genetic white survival. So the model minority narrative may have started with Asian Americans, but it was quickly co-opted by white politicians who saw it as a tool to win allies in the Cold War. Discrimination was not a good look on the international stage. Embracing Asian Americans, quote, provided a powerful means for the United States to proclaim itself a racial democracy and thereby credentialed to assume the leadership of the free world, end quote, Ellen Wu writes. Stories about Asian American success were turned into propaganda. By the 1960s, anxieties about the civil rights movement caused white Americans to further invest in positive portrayals of Asian Americans. So Asian Americans are complaining. Why are you Negroes complaining? Because the civil rights movement was covered internationally. And the civil rights movement in this country was happening concurrently with the African liberation movement on the continent of Africa. They were happening at the same time. And we were learning from one another and being inspired by one another. By the 1960s, anxieties about the civil rights movement caused white Americans to further invest in positive portrayals of Asian Americans. The image of the hardworking Asian became an extremely convenient way to deny the demands of African Americans. They say they're working hard. They're not complaining. Why are you complaining? Get back in that cotton field and pick that cotton, boy. As Ellen Wu in her book describes, both liberal and conservative politicians pumped up the image of Asian Americans as a way to shift the blame of Black poverty. Black poverty didn't just happen because we're happy with being poor. Black poverty came from a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, known as racism. It came from laws that maldistributed wealth into the hands of the dominant white society. We can look at the theft of 2.3 billion acres of land. We can look at policies like the Federal Housing Act. We can look at the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which created the redlining system in 1933. We can look at the Federal Housing Administration created in 1934. We can look at the GI Bill of 1944. As well, we can look at these policies coming out of the New Deal, okay, that maldistribute resources into the hands of Europeans. If you read the book, How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of American White Supremacy, How White Folks Got So Rich, The Untold Story of American White Supremacy, this book clearly, thoroughly breaks all this down. If Asians could find success within the system, politicians ask, why couldn't African Americans? So to ask this question, you have to totally disregard the history of African Americans in this country. You have to disregard the theft of our land because, one, we've been here at least 51,700 years. When you read the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep, who's a friend of mine, he thoroughly deals with this in the book. Let's see. We got it right here. You got the book from my brother, Dr. David Imhotep, right here. Okay. 713 footnotes thoroughly documenting an African presence in this country, going back at least 51,700 years ago. The Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet, who come from Southern Africa. You have a presence from ancient Kemet here. This doesn't mean the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen. Yes, it happened, but there were Africans here tens of thousands of years before that, before Native Americans came into existence. So you're dealing with the theft of 2.3 billion acres of land from indigenous Africans as well as Native Americans. And some of these African people are going to be classified as Black Indians. You have 246 years of slavery, okay, which maldistributes the resources into the hands of Europeans. You have a redistribution of the land with the Head Rights Acts, right? Then you're going to have other distributions of the land, like the Homestead Act of 1862, which gave 160 acres of land to white families who actually the head of household of these white families, who they had to take care of this land for 5 years and the land was theirs. You have a Southern Homestead Act of 1866. You have the redistribution of land because of the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, named after Senator Henry L. Dawes in Massachusetts, which distributed 138 million acres of land. Okay, it was supposed to go to Native Americans and African Americans, but 2/3 of the land went to Europeans. This is where you get the $5 Indian from. 138 million acres of land redistributed. Europeans get 2/3 of that land. These are affirmative action programs for white people. All right. So to understand the difference between the treatment of Asian Americans and African Americans, you have to understand the history of those two and how they were treated by Europeans. All right. OK, so let's continue here. How's everybody doing? Those just tuning in. Oh, so let me do this. Let me post this article here from the Washington Post. Okay, there's a fantastic article, and I've had this for some time. This is from November 29th, 2016. It's called "The Real Reasons the U.S. Became Less Racist Toward Asian Americans." The real reasons the U.S. became less racist towards Asian Americans, and we got on this topic because of the article from the Washington Post tonight about Donald Trump attacking protections for immigrants from S-hole countries and the comments he made about immigrants from Haiti and African countries. And then they were comparing the treatment of people of color, of Africans from these nations, right, and Hispanics. They were comparing that to the treatment of Asian Americans. Okay, and the difference. And I talked about how Asian Americans have been looked at by many Europeans as the model citizen. Okay, so the question is, how did they become the model citizen? They weren't the model citizen during World War II when the U.S. is fighting against Japan. Okay, so how did they become the model citizen? So now we're dealing with some of that history of how propaganda was used in the media to show to make Asian Americans the model citizen and to celebrate success stories of Asians and to show Asians are not complaining about their plight in this country and to downplay stories about Asians who were not successful. Okay, this is all dealing with propaganda coming out of white supremacy. All right. If you do not understand European white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. Everything else that you think that you understand will totally confuse you. OK, we're going to come back to some of your comments here in just a minute. I want to get through some more of this article here. OK, because it's a very, very important article to understand history, and a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future, to meet the needs of the community, because things happen in cycles. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. Okay, because things happen in cycles. All right. So once again, let me post this information here. All right. If you like this type of information here that we share at the African History Network, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. Our podcasts of our radio shows are there, almost 800 podcasts. You can support the African History Network when you order the DVDs. That helps it helps us to keep doing the research, stay on the air, pay the bills, etc. Okay. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We also have the 1804 documentary dealing with the history of the Haitian Revolution at our website as well. We've got that also, and other documentaries also. Okay, we're going to come to some more of your comments in just a minute. I want to get through some more of these, some more of this article here. Okay, and then we'll get to some of this other stuff as well. And I got to get ready because I'm doing 2 radio interviews in the morning. I'm on Pastor Bullock show, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on 10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit. Then I'm on Cliff Russell's show also. He's on 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. again. So I got to get ready for that as well. All right. So we just posted the information there about the 1804 documentary and also information about AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. All right. So let's go back to this, and please share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. All right. Please share this on Facebook. Okay. Please share this broadcast on your own Facebook page also. All right. How's everybody doing? Erica Watson, Robert, how's everybody doing? Please share this on Facebook. All right. Let's go back to this article here from Washington Post. It's called "The Real Reasons the U.S. Became Less Racist Towards Asian Americans." And this is understanding the vitriol and the antipathy and the hatred towards African countries, Haitian countries, Hispanic countries. Okay. So by the 1960s, anxieties about the civil rights movement caused white Americans to further invest in positive portrayals of Asian Americans. The image of the hardworking Asian became an extremely convenient way to deny the demands of African Americans. Okay, as Ellen Wu describes in her book, both liberal and conservative politicians pumped up the image of Asian Americans as a way to shift the blame for Black poverty. If Asians could find success within the system, politicians asked, why couldn't African Americans? They totally wanted to ignore our history. Our history is entirely different than anybody else's history in this country. Okay. The only people whose history is close to ours would be Native Americans. Quote, the insinuation was that the hard work, along with unwavering faith in the government and liberal democracy, as opposed to political protests, were the keys to overcoming racial barriers as well as achieving full citizenship. Ellen Wu writes in a book. Let me repeat this. The insinuation was that hard work, along with unwavering faith in the government and liberal democracy, as opposed to political protests like African Americans were doing, were the keys to overcoming racial barriers as well as achieving full citizenship. Now, recently, Ellen Wu chatted on the phone with the writer of this article about her book and the model minority stereotype, how it was equal parts truth, propaganda, and self-enforcing prophecy. Okay, so you can check out this article. They talk about their interview. All right. Now, there was also another article following along in that series called "The Real Secret to," let's pull this up. "The real secret to Asian American success was not education." The real secret to Asian American success was not education. This is from Washington Post also. This is from November 19th, 2016. That first article was from November 29th, 1916 by Jeff Guo, G-U-O. Okay. And he wrote an article about 10 days before that for Washington Post. "The real secret to Asian American success was not education." Okay. And so you can check out that article also. All right. Okay. So I want to go to some of your comments. Then I want to get to this article from NBCnews.com. Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as shithole countries. Okay. And this is what this fool said. Robert Campbell said he money laundered for the Russians. Yes, and that's the assertion. Stephen K. Bannon talked about that. That's reported in the book Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff. There's also other allegations about this. We know that Deutsche Bank was fined about $630 million by the U.S. government for laundering $10 billion in Russian money. Okay. We know that Deutsche Bank is the largest creditor of Donald Trump. He owes them somewhere around $300 million. We also know that Jared Kushner owes Deutsche Bank $285 million. We also know that the U.S. attorney Preet Bharara, who was fired by Donald Trump, his territory was Manhattan, where Trump Towers is. One of the things Preet Bharara was investigating before he was fired was possible crimes that Deutsche Bank committed in the New York area. Okay. So when all this stuff comes out, this is going to be really deep, and it's going to be worse than what most people think. And Donald Trump, once again, is going to be forced to resign from office. Okay. If you were shocked when Ali B. Foreman's behind, wait till you see Donald Trump resign. Nishika Gray said, anxieties, they stay worried about us. Arthur Hubbard says, so true. Dakin Belfort said, Haitian African, please make still together. Haitian African, please make still together. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Phyllis Stevens said, black people will never get what they are supposed to have. We people rule this planet for some reason. Look at 45 today, all the things he said today alone. Then since he took office, Ralph Lake said, preach. Shava Quinn said, yes, read the book. Robert Campbell, he said, that's right, the Moors. Erica Watson said 51,700 years ago, referring to the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. She said, what's the book you're showing? This book right here. Egg Dwayne said, oh, snap. Author said, yes. Christy Daoud said, this is the fatherland. Africa is mother land. This land was Pangea, aka Mexim. Okay. Okay, we're dealing with the Pangea theory now. All right. Okay. Ralph said he's breaking it down. Beverly said, love the information. Need a transcription of this broadcast. That makes two of us. Erica said, bringing the truth. All right. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at this article here from NBCnews.com. Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as S-hole countries, right? So Trump on Thursday referred to Haiti and African nations as shithole countries during a meeting with a bipartisanship group of senators at the White House. A Democratic aide briefed on the meeting told NBC News. Trump's comments were first reported by the Washington Post. That's the story we first dealt with. That was the Washington Post. They're the ones that broke this story. Josh Dorsey for the Washington Post broke that story, which said the group of nations referred to also included El Salvador. Now, the comments came as senators huddled in the Oval Office with Trump to discuss a path forward on an immigration deal. Trump questioned why the United States would want people from nations such as Haiti while he was being briefed on changes to the visa lottery system. According to the aide, when the group came to discussing immigration from Africa, Trump asked why America would want immigrants from, quote, all these shithole countries, end quote, and that the U.S. should have more people coming in from places like Norway, okay, which is a predominantly white nation, European nation, right? Thursday's meeting came one day after Trump met with the Norwegian Prime Minister, Erna Solberg, at the White House. A source familiar with Thursday's meeting told NBC News that Trump was particularly frustrated during discussions about the visa lottery system, a program Trump has railed against repeatedly in recent months. Okay, railed against the visa lottery system. Another White House source explained the language Trump used as his way of trying to emphasize his support for a merit-based immigration system. The White House issued a statement that did not deny the remarks. Now, this is important for people to understand. The White House is not denying that Trump made these remarks. And some speculate that he made these remarks because this will play really good with his base. He's seeing dwindling approval ratings, right? So the White House issued a statement that did not deny the remarks. Quote, certain Washington politicians choose to fight for foreign countries, but Trump will always fight for the American people. White House Deputy Press Secretary Raj Shah, SHAH, told NBC Thursday as part of a lengthy statement that did not directly dispute the language reportedly used in the meeting. Quote, he will always reject temporary, weak, and dangerous stopgap measures that threaten the lives of hardworking Americans and undercut immigrants who seek a better life in the United States through a legal pathway, end quote. Okay. So you can read the rest of this also, because we talked about some of this in the extensive coverage from the Washington Post, because the Washington Post was the first one to break this story also. Okay, so we'll post the link here of this article here as well, here on our Facebook, on the thread of the broadcast here on Facebook. All right. Okay, so and then also you probably heard that Walmart announced raises and bonuses right today, raising the minimum wage, raising their starting wage to $11 an hour. But then Walmart announced that 63 Sam's Club stores will be closing. Okay, now what's important for people to understand. Okay, see, Walmart tried to say, well, they're giving these bonuses, they're giving $1,000. Up to $1,000 in one-time bonuses, right? But that's only for people who've been working there 20 years, as reported by MSNBC today. Okay, and they're raising their starting salary to $11 an hour. What Trump and the White House are not telling you, what they're not telling you is that in 2017, 19 states raised the minimum wage by law, and the District of Columbia, and that was to take place January 2018. So this was already planned. It wasn't because of the tax cut. Walmart announced on Thursday it would raise starting wages for hourly employees to $11 an hour beginning next month, February 2018, and will give some of its hourly workers one-time bonuses that could be as high as $1,000. So all the hourly workers are not getting $1,000 bonuses. In total, more than 1 million employees could benefit, the company said. Now, the goodwill generated by that announcement, however, was quickly dampened by reports that Walmart would be closing 63 Sam Club stores across the country, some with no advance notice. Walmart president and CEO Doug McMillon credited the recently passed corporate tax cuts for the salary hikes, saying, quote, tax reform gives us the opportunity to become more competitive globally and to accelerate plans for the U.S., end quote. We saw today White House press secretary, the White House press secretary conference, the daily briefing, we saw Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin was there, and he was taking questions, and he said that the reason why Walmart and these other companies are raising the hourly rate and giving bonuses is because of Donald Trump's tax cut, right? But then he was asked a question, well, wait a second, they're also laying off thousands of workers. And he said, oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with the tax cut, right? Didn't want to deal with that. Also, if you notice, the White House does not want to talk about the thousands of retail employees that are going to be laid off, because you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of retail outlets shutting down. It's already been announced from various companies. They're not talking about that at all. Notice that. Now, CEO Doug McMillon of Walmart said Walmart will give one-time bonuses to hourly workers who already earn more than $11 an hour. Okay, who already earn more than $11 an hour. The amount will be based on employees' length of service with the company, starting at $200 and going up to $1,000 for workers with tenures of 20 years or longer. Okay, the amount will be based on employees' length of service, with the company starting at $200 and going up to $1,000 for workers with tenures of 20 years or longer. So to get the $1,000 bonus, you have to have worked for Walmart for 20 years or longer. Oh my God. Was that 50? Were you getting $50 a year? $50 a year that you worked there? Okay. Hey, work at Walmart for 20 years. We're going to give you $1,000 bonus. Oh, Walmart said the wage increase will cost $300 million and the bonuses will cost $400 million. Quote, the new law will create some financial benefit for the company, end quote, Walmart said in a statement, saying it was, quote, early in the process of assessing potential additional investments, end quote, and that it would provide additional details next month when it announces quarterly earnings. All right. Now, since the passage of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, a number of companies announced employee bonuses, including NBC News parent company Comcast, plus AT&T, JetBlue, and a host of financial institutions, including Bank of America and Wells Fargo. Policymakers are divided on how much of this largesse is due to the tax cuts and how much can be attributed to a tightening labor market and low unemployment rate. Unemployment rate 17-year low at 4.1%, right? But that's because he's running based upon President Obama's policies, because it was the unemployment rate, U3, there's 6 unemployment rates. U3 is the one that's reported in the media the first Friday of each month, right? It was 4.9% when Trump took the oath of office January 20th, 2017. So you ain't done nothing miraculous, buddy. Okay, you just following along the momentum that was built under President Obama. Policymakers are divided on how much of this largesse is due to the tax cuts and how much can be attributed to a tightening labor market and low unemployment rate. Quote, Walmart has made similar announcements in the recent past, even when no tax reform could have affected its decision, said Gary Burtless, an economist with the Brookings Institution. We also know last year, Target raised the minimum wage that they pay. And some are speculating also that partly Walmart is trying to raise it to compete with Target as well. Now, the new Walmart employee wage increase follows 2 earlier pay hikes the retailer implemented in 2015 and 2016 that raised hourly worker pay to $9 and $10 an hour, respectively. Today, new hires start at $9 an hour and move up to $10 an hour after completing a training course. Okay. Walmart has been criticized by organized labor advocates for its pay rates and has been a frequent target of a union-backed campaign to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. All right. Now, there was an article from what was that? It was let's see, which article was that? It was from, I think, CNBC.com. I was looking at it earlier today, preparing for the show. I want to pull this article up because this deals directly with what the White House is not talking about. And this deals with the minimum wage being raised. I think this is it from CNBC.com, December 21st. Here we go. State minimum wage hikes will add $5 billion to worker paychecks in 2018. So this is what the White House is not talking about, right? CNBC.com, December 21st, 2017. More than 4.5 million American workers will get a fatter paycheck beginning next month, January. And the raise has nothing to do with the sweeping tax overhaul bill approved this week. This is what Trump, this is what Sarah Huckabee Sanders, this is what Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin are not telling you. 19 states and the District of Columbia will boost the statutory minimum wage effective in January 2018, giving those workers a combined wage increase of more than $5 billion next year. Talking about this year, this is from December 21st, 2017. The state of Maine will boost the bottom pay rate by $1 to $10 an hour, a raise that will benefit an estimated 59,000 workers. This was already in the works for many people, okay? So this is not because of the tax cut. This is already, and then thinkprogress.org had an article today breaking this down as well. They're saying this is not because of the tax cut. This was already in the works before the tax cut passed. So check out this article as well. This is from CNBC.com. This is what the White House won't tell you. Okay. Let's post this here on the thread of the broadcast as well. Once again, this is from CNBC.com. Name of this article is State Minimum Wage Hikes Will Add $5 billion to Worker Paychecks in 2018. Okay. That's from December 21st, 2017. All right. So let's try to get to some of these other stories because I'm gonna have to get out of here soon. I got to get ready. I'm doing 2 radio interviews tomorrow on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, and I got to get ready for that. Once again, those in the Detroit area, I want to let you know that I'm doing a 2-day lecture series in Detroit Saturday this weekend. We know this is Dr. King weekend, right? Saturday, January 13th. Sunday, January 14th at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe located at 125. No, sorry, that's the old one. Located at 71 Oakman Avenue, in Highland Park, Michigan. Okay. Both days, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both days. Free event, donations accepted. Come on out, open to the public. The first day I will deal with the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The revolutionary will not be televised on the television. The distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The revolutionary will not be televised on the television. Day 2, Sunday, January 14th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'll deal with African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump. Voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump. Voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. Okay. You can visit AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information as well. Okay. All right. So let's go to this next story here. All right. So you had this crazy story coming out of New Jersey. Okay. New Jersey. Now we know Chris Christie is the former governor of New Jersey. He was term limited, so he just stepped down as governor, right? The book, The New Jim Crow, has been banned in New Jersey prisons. The American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, vows to fight this. The Civil Liberties Organization calls the ban unconstitutional. News1.com has this story. Some New Jersey prisons added Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, to their list of banned publications. And this was originally reported by The Guardian, theguardian.com. Officials are concerned that the book's powerful message could awaken inmates to discrimination in the criminal justice system. Okay. Now, Tess Borden, T-E-S-S, Tess Borden is an ACLU attorney who said in a letter to New Jersey's corrections commissioner, quote, for the state burdened with the systemic injustice to prohibit prisoners from reading a book about race and mass incarceration is grossly ironic, misguided, and harmful. Once again, for the state burdened with this systemic injustice to prohibit prisoners from reading a book about race and mass incarceration is grossly ironic, misguided, and harmful. Okay. And Tess Borden noted that the state of New Jersey has the nation's largest racial disparity incarceration rate. Now, we know Alabama has the highest incarceration rate, but according to Tess Borden, ACLU staff attorney, the state of New Jersey has the nation's largest racial disparity incarceration rate. Now, Keith Boykin on Twitter posted the article about from The Guardian, acclaimed book, The New Jim Crow, banned in some New Jersey prisons. And he said on Twitter, I taught Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness, in my last 2 classes at Columbia University. It not only belongs in every prison, but in the office of every member of Congress and every state legislator. Now, the article goes on to say from news1.com, the ACLU, which obtained a list from a public records request, argued that the ban violated the inmates' First Amendment rights. Prisoners are typically banned from obtaining reading material that would incite violence or instruct them on how to do things like create explosive devices, right? The book does neither of those things. Instead, it illuminates the true nature of the contemporary system of racial control and the role of the criminal justice system in that scheme. Their fear is having African-American inmates who are wise to the system. There's a fear that African-American inmates will learn how the system works and free themselves from that system, understand how they've been railroaded in many instances. Now, some of the people who are there committed the crimes, right? And they deserve to be in prison. Okay. Maybe their sentence was too harsh or something like that. But that book would teach them how to fight back against violations that could be taking place in prison, or in cases where they are innocent, right, and didn't do anything, they were totally railroaded. It can help them fight against that as well. Okay. So you have that article from news1.com. And this is from, what date is this? January 8th, 2018 by Nigel Roberts. Okay. So we're going to post we'll post the link to this article on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. We're on the thread of the broadcast. Okay. We'll post it here. And Malcolm said the data is wrong. What data are you referring to, Malcolm, is wrong? All right. Okay, we got Brenda, we got Danette Hudson. Of course, they would ban it. They don't want woke prisoners. Exactly. Okay, Erica Watson said exactly just like slavery. Arthur said, right. We just posted that link. Okay, so there's an update to this story from AtlantaBlackStar.com. All right, so let's look at this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com. And where is it here? I think I have to pull it up. Okay, so let's pull up this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com. Just a minute here. Those just tuning in, hey, this is the African History Network show. And we were trying to broadcast on Blog Talk Radio so you can call in, but Skype was acting up tonight. So we're just going to, we'll upload this audio podcast to our Blog Talk Radio channel, blogtalkradio.com/the African History Network show. We'll upload it there, and it'll automatically be uploaded on iTunes, our iTunes channel, the African History Network show also. You can get to all that if you just go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Has the link on the homepage dealing with how to listen to podcasts of our shows. Okay, but we're here on Facebook Live. Those watching on Facebook, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page and invite your friends to tune in also. So we have an update to this story about the book, The New Jim Crow, being banned by some prisons in the state of New Jersey. AtlantaBlackStar.com reports January 11th, 2018, as New Jersey prisons lift ban on the new Jim Crow, New York restricts inmates access to books. This is an article by Tanasia Kinney. Okay, so what's so threatening in the book that you don't want prisoners to have it? New Jersey announced this week that it has lifted a ban on a best-selling book highlighting mass incarceration after protests by the American Civil Liberties Union. See, protests oftentimes do work. Okay, this is why you have to be engaged. We're in for a real fight. Okay, and this is why you have to be engaged. This is not time to sit on the sidelines unless you want to keep being beaten upside the head and if you want to keep being mistreated. The state's decision, the state of New Jersey's decision to end its prohibition of the book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by author Michelle Alexander, at 2 state prisons came in response to a sharply worded letter from the ACLU of New Jersey. The New York Times reported the memo addressed to New Jersey's Corrections Commissioner, Gary Lanigan, Lanigan, argued that the text or the book's presence on the list of banned books at Southern State Correctional Facility and the New Jersey State Prison violated First Amendment protections. The group described the ban as, quote, ironic, misguided, and harmful, end quote, among other things, and asked that the department remove Michelle Alexander's work from the list. It also entreated the department to review its facilities policies on banned texts or banned books. It also entreated the department to review its facilities policies on banned texts. Quote, Michelle Alexander's book chronicles how people of color are not just locked in, but locked out of civic life. And New Jersey has exiled them further by banning this text specifically for them. ACLU New Jersey Executive Director Amol Sinha said in a statement, Amol Sinha, quote, the ratio and percentage of mass incarceration play out in terms of human lives, Sinha added. Keeping a book that examines a national tragedy out of the hands of the people mired within it adds insult to injury, end quote. So the department confirmed in New Jersey. The department confirmed Monday, January 8th, that the ban had been lifted at all its facilities, adding that there was never a department-wide ban on the book, according to the New York Times. It noted that Michelle Alexander's book is utilized by the New Jersey Scholarship and Transformative Education Program, which allows inmates to take college-level courses. Matthew Schuman, spokesman for the New Jersey Department of Corrections, explained that the ban was ultimately lifted, quote, because officials determined that the book should not have been banned as evidenced by the fact that it's been utilized as a teaching tool, end quote. Okay. Now, Matthew Schuman failed to say why the book was banned in the first place, however. That's what I want to know. They keep going, they're going around in a circle. Oh, the book wasn't banned, but we're lifting the ban. What the hell are you talking about? Matthew Schuman, spokesman for the New Jersey Department of Corrections, explained that the ban was ultimately lifted, quote, because officials determined that the book should not have been banned as evidenced by that fact that it's being utilized as a teaching tool, end quote. He failed to explain why the book was banned in the first place. It don't make any sense. It don't make any sense. So Michelle Alexander rejoiced at word that her book was finally unbanned in the state with the highest disparity between blacks and white inmates, saying that she was, quote unquote, glad. But you shouldn't be glad because the book wasn't banned in the first place, but they lifted the ban. All right. So, so let's see. So Michelle Alexander told the newspaper, quote, I hope the experience will inspire people to continue to challenge unreasonable regulations and conditions of confinement. And I hope the media will pay more attention to the oppressive rules and regulations governing the lives of people who are incarcerated, end quote. Now, just as the Garden State the state of New Jersey lifted its ban on the new Jim Crow, its neighbor across the river implemented a new program restricting prisoners' access to books. This is in the state of New York. Under Directive 4911A, the packages that incarcerated people in New York can receive would be whittled down to items purchased from just 6 vendors, as reported by Think Progress. That sounds like people getting some contracts. The packages that incarcerated people in New York can receive would be whittled down or reduced down to items purchased from just 6 vendors. Think Progress reported. So far, the first 5 vendors offered 5 romance novels, 14 religious texts, 24 drawing or coloring books. What the hell you need a coloring book for in prison? 21 puzzle books, 11 how-to books, 1 dictionary, and 1 thesaurus. You better get that dictionary and thesaurus, though. I'm telling you right now. The catalog for the 6th vendor doesn't appear to be available to prisons in the state just yet. What the hell you need a coloring book for in prison? The state's Department of Corrections and Community Supervision has touted the new program as one that, quote, will enhance the safety and security of correctional facilities through a more controlled inmate package program, end quote. The Pennsylvania-based Books Through Bars Collective, which sends books and educational materials to inmates across the nation, begs to differ, however. Quote, Directive 4911A hurts people far beyond the scope of New York City Books Through Bars mission. The group wrote in a letter to New York Governor Andrew Cuomo denouncing the program. Quote, it hurts New Yorkers in myriad other ways, inside and outside of prison. Prisoners are deprived of fresh produce. Visitors are no longer able to bring gifts, and small businesses are diminished in favor of exploitative prison industry businesses. Okay. Relying on these vendors is another financial burden placed on prisoners, their friends, their loved ones, and their community. Sounds like some people are getting some contracts. The program was enacted last month and is currently in place at 3 New York prisons. Okay, so check out this article here from AtlantaBlackStar.com. Gives an update on Michelle Alexander's book being banned in the state of New Jersey by 2 prisons. That ban was lifted, but they said it was never banned in the first place. So how could you lift a ban if it was never banned in the first place? I don't understand that. Okay. And then we have this going on with New York also. All right. Now, this is an example of how politics impacts every aspect of your life. Politics deals with laws. It deals with policies. Everything is governed by laws and policies. Okay. And this is an example of this, what's taking place in the prison system. All right. So we have that story. Okay. And then I want to get to this other story here. Crazy story. Well, let's go to the story about the Black Panther movie. Okay. So NBC Black has this story. Other outlets ran this story. So we know the movie The Black Panther starring Chadwick Boseman comes out February 16th, and I'll be there. Probably won't see it the first day. I'm gonna try to see it the first weekend. All right. And it's a good time for African American History Month. And I may even do a presentation dealing with the Black Panther, the superhero, the Black Panther from Marvel Comics. Black Panther sets Fandango record as top early pre-selling Marvel movie. All right. This is from NBCBlack.com. Advanced sales of Disney Marvel's Black Panther, because you know Walt Disney owns Marvel Comics now. They own Marvel, right? Advanced sales for Disney Marvel's Black Panther has set a new record for Fandango as the top seller among Marvel Cinematic Universe movies in the first 24 hours, topping Captain America Civil War. Sales launched Monday, Monday night, after a national spot aired during the telecast of the college football playoff national championship. Chadwick Boseman stars as T'Challa, who takes over as king of Wakanda after his father T'Chaka is killed, as shown in Captain America Civil War, the movie Captain America Civil War, which is a very good movie, by the way. The film also stars Angela Bassett's Ramonda. She plays the part of Ramonda. Forrest Whitaker plays the part of Zuri, and Michael B. Jordan plays Eric Killmonger in the film. Okay, so the film opens February 16, 2018, and Fandango editor Eric Davis said Black Panther is riding an incredible wave of momentum right now. It's one of the biggest and most anticipated movies to ever open in the month of February, and its trailers have electrified the internet. Ticket sales have been going fast ever since pre-sales started on Fandango late Monday. Okay. Now, quote unquote. Now, Fandango said a survey of more than 8,000 moviegoers showed that Black Panther was voted as one of the year's top 2 most anticipated movies, ranking second to Disney Marvel's Avengers Infinity War. I got to see that also, Avengers Infinity War, which includes many of the Black Panther characters, and Chadwick Boseman was voted as the most anticipated comic book hero in a standalone movie. Captain America Civil War opened in May of 2016 and is the 15th highest worldwide grosser with $1.15 billion. The 15th highest worldwide grosser with $1.15 billion. All right. So there's a lot of anticipation around this movie. I'm going to see it. Encourage you to go to see it as well. And they should have a series of Black Panther movies. And this, I think, would be really something good for African-American children to see as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to our next story, but we have a special message here from Afroganics.co, Afroganics.co, GANIX, calling all Black-owned businesses. Afroganics LLC is a multi-vendor e-commerce platform that allows customers to purchase items, book services, make appointments, make reservations at restaurants, put in food orders at restaurants and groceries and for groceries, and orders to farmers, and so much more. Featuring more than 200 categories, Afro-Organics will showcase African-American owned businesses of all types. Afro-Organics launches in April 2018 for customers. Business owners can register now at afroorganics.co. AFROGANIX, afroorganics.co. Check it out right now. But wait, there's more. If you sign up in the month of January, your store will be free until July 2018. Plus, Afro-Organics takes absolutely no commission ever. A virtual Black Wall Street across the nation will truly be a reality with the help of Black-owned businesses and customers like you. Check out Afro-Organics today, okay? And we'll post the link here to Afro-Organics showing the thread of the broadcast as well. All right. Okay. All right, so how's everybody doing? We'll go to some of your comments here in just a minute. Let's try to check this out here. Hopefully this doesn't freeze up. Let me close some of these. All right, Maurice said, don't forget about the show Black Lightning. Yeah, Black Lightning starts on the CW. And when does that show start? Now, is that the same Black Lightning from Super Friends? Because you remember on the Super Friends, they had a Black superhero on the Super Friends from the 70s and 80s. And I thought his name was Black Lightning. Okay. So is that the same Black Lightning? Or is this a different Black Lightning? All right. I'm just curious. But it looked kind of interesting. Black Lightning. Christy Dawood said okay. Let me see here. Afroorganics.co. Yeah, Afroorganics.co. You spelled it correctly. Yeah, Afro GANIXCO. Yeah, sorry, GANIX.co. Yeah, you spelled it correctly. Okay. So let's go. Okay. This is freezing up here. All right, so we should be coming through all right on Facebook. All right, so I'm going to go to this other story here. Let's go to this other story. So I talked about this some on the when I was on Cliff Russell's show, and we have that uploaded to our YouTube channel. I've been uploading a lot of videos to YouTube. Michael Imhotep on YouTube, or go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the YouTube banner. You can check out all of our YouTube videos there, right? Okay, so you have this story coming out of Kansas. And this deals with history. This deals with the drug laws, all of this stuff, right? So Kansas Republican lawmaker says Black people can't handle marijuana because of their genetics. Kansas Republican lawmaker says Black people can't handle marijuana because of their genetics, all right? A Kansas state Republican lawmaker resurrected a Jim Crow myth that African Americans are genetically predisposed to handle marijuana more poorly than other races during a speech over the weekend. So this article is from January 8th, 2018. January 8th, 2018. I think that was Monday. So as the Garden City Telegram reported, the newspaper, Kansas State Representative Steve Alford, who's a Republican, told an all-white crowd that marijuana was criminalized during the Prohibition era in the 1930s, primarily because of Black marijuana usage. When asked, he said this when asked a question by a member of the local Democratic Party about potential economic boons or economic gains from cannabis legalization. Here's what State Representative Steve Alford said, quote, "What you really need to do is go back in the 1930s when they outlawed all types of drugs in Kansas and across the United States. What was the reason why they did that? one of the reasons why, I hate to say it, was that the African Americans, they were basically users, and they basically responded the worst off to these drugs just because of their character makeup, their genetics, and that. Okay, he said this is a lawmaker. Okay, you've got to understand how this works. You have these people operating based upon stereotypes, based upon myths, based upon lies, based upon misinformation, and they're crafting policies that impact every aspect of our life based upon nonsense. Okay, he said they were basically users. He said it was the African Americans, they were basically users, and they basically responded the worst off to those drugs just because of their character makeup, their genetics, and that. End quote. Now, as the Garden City Telegram noted in their report, Kansas State Representative Steve Alford's comments referenced a belief promoted by marijuana prohibitionist Harry J. Anslinger, the founding commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. You've heard me talk about Harry J. Anslinger before. This is how policies impact every aspect of your life. Quote, under Anslinger's leadership, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics came to be considered responsible for the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. The report noted, quote, regulating cannabis and further taxing it to the ultimate detriment of the hemp industry that was booming at the time. Because see, originally it wasn't called marijuana. It was called cannabis or hemp, and it was grown as a crop. And you had some of the colonies that grew it as a crop. Okay, some of the colonies, it was mandated that they grow this crop. But what happened was, when you had Mexicans coming to this country in the early 1900s, and the hatred that became associated with the Mexicans, they adopted this Spanish term marijuana, and the hatred associated with Mexicans became associated with this term marijuana. Okay, the article goes on to say, quote, reefer makes, because they also called it reefer when they're using this negative term, they will also use the term reefer. Okay, so you have movies like Reefer Madness. You had a whole propaganda campaign to convince Americans to go along with this prohibition of hemp and cannabis, calling it reefer and marijuana. Quote, reefer makes darkies think they're as good as white men. End quote. This is what Harry J. Anslinger once said when explaining why marijuana supposedly caused crime and violence. The commissioner also fought for the prohibition of cannabis due to, quote, its effects on the degenerate races, end quote. The Telegram, the Garden City Telegram said. Now, he testified in front of Congress in 1937 and lied because there were rumors that white women craved black men sexually when they were high on marijuana. Okay. And he talked about how it was Filipinos and Mexicans and Negroes and jazz singers, J-A-Z-Z, jazz singers who use marijuana. Okay. So check out this article from rawstory.com. Rawstory.com. Kansas Republican lawmaker says black people can't handle marijuana because of their genetics. Okay. And they have the video of his comments in the article also. Okay. Crazy story in 2017, but this is the era of Donald Trump, right? This is the era of Donald Trump. And this is an example of how elections has consequences and how people are influenced by what they read, see, and hear. What you read, see, and hear affects the way you think, feel, act, and behave. Now, what I talked about yesterday on Cliff Russell's show, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, we have the video on our YouTube channel also from January 10th, 2018. You should go back and look at an article from February 8th, 1914, 104 years ago, February 8th, 1914, from the New York Times. Name of this article was Negro Cocaine Fiends Are a New Southern Menace. Murder and insanity increasing among lower class blacks because they have taken to sniffing. since deprived of whiskey by prohibition. This is an actual article. I read the article. I had to pay a digital subscription to the New York Times to be able to go back in their archives and read this article. This is from Sunday, February 8th, 1914, the New York Times. This was exactly 1 year to the date before the movie The Birth of a Nation debuted, because the movie The Birth of a Nation that showed all types of derogatory images of African Americans and made the Ku Klux Klan to be the hero of the movie. That movie debuted February 8th, 1915, okay, which was the 50th year anniversary, right, of the end of the Civil War, of the end of chattel slavery, the 13th Amendment, enslaved Africans being set free, things like this. 1915, so that was 1865, right? Civil War ends. 1915 was the 50th year anniversary of all of that. Negro cocaine fiends are now a new Southern menace. Murder and insanity increasing among lower class blacks because they have taken to sniffing since deprived of whiskey by prohibition. And I wrote an article dealing with this called a short history of how drug laws, a short history of how the war on drugs has been a war on people of color. Okay. And in the article, I talk about how this is a shocking look at how far back in history the war on drugs has been used as a tool to oppress African Americans and people of color. Ethan Nadelman is the founder of the executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance, which is a New York City based nonprofit organization working to end the war on drugs. And he talks about how when we look at the history of drug laws in this country, we see that the laws are not about the drugs themselves historically, but it's really about who is using the drug. We can see the first anti-drug laws occur in San Francisco in 1875 and are against Chinese using opium. We can see in 1937 marijuana being made illegal because Harry J. Anslinger, the first director of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, lied in his congressional testimony about Mexicans, Filipinos, and Negroes, and how white women allegedly craved African American men sexually when they were high on marijuana. Okay. Also, when you read the article, Negro cocaine fiends are a new Southern menace. Murder and insanity increasing among lower class blacks because they have taken to sniffing since deprived of whiskey by prohibition, from Sunday, February 8th, 1914, from the New York Times. When you read this article, they talk about, let me see, what was I going to say here? They talk about in the article, do police officers now have to carry a 45 caliber handgun because a 38 is not powerful enough to kill a Negro high on cocaine? There were real fears of what black men would do when they were high on cocaine, and would they rape white women, and would they have superhuman strength? Okay, this was history. Okay, all right, so check that out. Now, Representative Steve Alford has the other articles have come out. He has resigned his leadership position, but he's still a member of the state legislature in Kansas, in the state of Kansas, right? And then we see that Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, Donald Trump's attorney general, right? We see that he has reversed an Obama era policy dealing with marijuana. New York Times reported January 4th, 2018, that Trump administration takes step that could threaten marijuana legalization movement. All right. The viability of the multi-billion-dollar marijuana legalization movement was thrown into new doubt on last week Thursday, when the Trump administration freed prosecutors to more aggressively enforce federal laws against the drug in states that have decriminalized its production and sale, most recently in California. So January 1st of this year, in the state of California, marijuana became legal for recreational usage. And I was in California at the end of this year, beginning of this year. I was in there December 30th through January 2nd, I think it was. Okay. And So I was there for that. And I didn't partake. I don't smoke marijuana, don't consume marijuana, don't use drugs at all, right? But this was legislation that passed, okay, in the state of California. So all right, and we're back. Okay, how's everybody doing? Okay, so we're back. Hey, welcome back to the African History Network show. This is part 2. We ran into some technical difficulties. So we're back here now. We're broadcasting on Facebook Live, our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, the African History Network. Okay, so we're back for part 2. We were talking about Trump calls Haiti, African nations, shithole countries, S-hole countries, right? And we talked about the Black Panther movies on fire as well, selling out in pre-sales. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. This is part 2. We have part 1 here on our fan page, the African History Network. You can go back and listen to that after the show is over with. We ran into some technical difficulties, so we had to restart. Okay, we're here back for part 2. And right before the break, we were talking about this story that came out of Cartersville, Georgia. Okay, audio's good. How's everybody doing? Okay, we're going to pick up where we left off. So we're talking about the story that came out of Cartersville, Georgia. Police arrested 63 people at a house party after finding less than 1 ounce of marijuana. Some attendees spent several days in jail. So we dealt with some of the history of marijuana laws. We talked about why marijuana was made illegal in 1937 and how Harry J. Anslinger, who was the chairman of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, lied in his congressional testimony. Okay. And the reason why marijuana was made illegal was because of who was using it. African Americans, Mexicans, Filipinos, things like this. As long as white people were using the drugs, it was okay. All right. Okay. So everybody share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in as well. This is part 2. Okay. All right, so this story comes from thinkprogress.org from January 2nd, 2018. Police in Cartersville, Georgia responded to a call of apparent gunshots on Saturday night, but what they found was a house party with nearly 100 people celebrating a 21st birthday party. Okay, when police arrived at the scene, something led them to believe there were drugs on the property. They reportedly entered the house without the permission of the partygoers, and after less than 1 ounce of marijuana was discovered by officers, 63 attendees were arrested and sent to jail because no one claimed the drugs as their own. All right. So the police said that they said that the drugs within reach of all 63 people, because no one claimed the drugs as their own, they arrested all 63 people. Okay. Now show me when they've done this to a majority white crowd of people or majority white group of people. All right. Show me where they've done this. Okay. Everybody share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Let's continue with this story out of Cartersville, Georgia. Okay, and this deals with law. It deals with drug laws. All right, and how racism impacts drug laws also. Be sure this broadcast on your Facebook page. Okay, so let's continue. So in interviews given by Atlanta's Channel 2 Action News, some of the attendees claimed they were tied up with zip ties and threatened with tasers. Some of the men claimed they were locked up in cages. According to the partygoers, it was fireworks, not gunshots, that were likely heard by the individual who called the police. So probably one of the neighbors called the police, said they heard gunshots. Police come to the party, predominantly African Americans there, right? They start arresting people. Okay, so one of the arrested attendees, who was a pregnant woman, told Channel 2 News in Atlanta, I was throwing up water, quote unquote. The whole saying, S-A-Y-I-N-G, incident, innocent until proven guilty. The saying innocent until proven guilty went out the window. They told me I was an unfit person to have a baby. Really? How did the police make that judgment? There's no evidence she was using drugs. According to jail records, the 63 individuals who were arrested Saturday night were processed by Monday night. All were charged with a single count of marijuana possession. The individuals arrested were predominantly African-American males aged 19 to 25. Channel 2 News in Atlanta reports some have lost their jobs as a result of spending multiple days in jail. Now, one of the accounts of this incident said that there were some illegal guns found there. Okay, so the illegal guns arrest the people who had the illegal guns. Don't arrest all 63 people because they all had access to less than 1 ounce of marijuana. In Athens, Georgia, a city with a similar racial makeup of Cartersville, Georgia, African-American individuals were found to be 4.7 times more likely to be charged with marijuana violation than white individuals. 4.7 times more likely to be charged with marijuana violations than white individuals. The same discrepancy exists on the national level as well. So nationwide, African Americans are 4 times as likely, basically almost 4 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana. But African Americans and white people have the same usage rate of marijuana. Okay, so you have some people who say, well, if you don't want to be arrested, don't use marijuana. Okay, tell that to the white people then. Tell that to the white people. If you don't want to be arrested, don't use marijuana. Tell that to them. According to a 2013 American Civil Liberties Union report, ACLU, titled "The War on Marijuana in Black and White," an African-American person is 3.73 times more likely, almost 4 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than someone white, even though African Americans and European Americans, white people, use marijuana at similar rates. This pattern continues even in states where marijuana is legal. Between 2008 and 2014, marijuana arrests decreased by 60% in Colorado and 90% in Washington, both states that had legalized marijuana usage. A study conducted by the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice's Mike Males, M-A-L-E-S, however, concluded that Black people in 2018 and 2014 were twice as likely to be arrested for marijuana in both states. Okay, so that's from thinkprogress.org. Police arrested 63 people at a house party after finding less than 1 ounce of marijuana. Okay, that's January 2nd, 2018. That is from thinkprogress.org. All right, now let's look at this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, because we talked about the Kansas State representative, Steve Alford, right, who talked about one of the reasons why marijuana was made illegal is because of how African Americans reacted to it. He said he said, I hate to say it, it was the African Americans. They were basically users, and they basically responded the worst off to those drugs just because of their character makeup, their genetics. Okay, so if we look at the article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. Now, we talked about the story from the New York Times about Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III reversing President Obama. Another Obama era policy reversed. You think elections don't have consequences, right? Why are they reversing? Why have they reversed over 100 policies from President Obama if elections don't have consequences? Trump administration takes step that could threaten marijuana legalization movement. That was January 8th, 2018 from the New York Times. If we look at this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, same date, January 4th, 2018. Okay. New York Times article was January 4th, 2018. Also, this is the same date as well. U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. All right. AtlantaBlackStar.com. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is rescinding the Obama era policy that paved the way for legalized marijuana to flourish in states across the country. 2 people with knowledge of the decision told the Associated Press. Sessions will instead let federal prosecutors where pot is legal decide how aggressively to enforce federal marijuana law, the people said. Okay. The people familiar with the plan spoke on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss it before an announcement expected on Thursday. The move by Donald Trump's attorney general likely will add to confusion about whether it's okay to grow, buy, or use marijuana in states where marijuana is legal, since long-standing federal law prohibits it. It comes days after marijuana shops opened up in California, launching what is expected to become the world's largest market for legal recreational marijuana. And as polls show, a solid majority of Americans believe the drug should be legal. Okay. Now, while Jeff Sessions has been carrying out a Justice Department agenda that follows Trump's top priorities on such issues as immigration and opioids, the change to marijuana policy reflects his own concerns. Trump's personal views on marijuana remain largely unknown. Now, Jeff Sessions is totally against the legalization of marijuana for medicinal purposes, for recreational purposes. He's totally against it. Okay. Now, during the campaign, Trump said the legalization of marijuana should be left up to the states. This reversal of an Obama era policy totally contradicts that. Now, Sessions, who has assailed marijuana as comparable to heroin and has blamed it for spikes in violence, has been expected to ramp up enforcement. Pot advocates, marijuana advocates argue that legalizing marijuana eliminates the need for a black market and would likely reduce violence, since criminals would no longer control the marijuana trade. Now, the Obama administration in 2013 announced it would not stand in the way of states that legalize marijuana so long as officials acted to keep it from migrating to places where it remained outlawed and out of the hands of criminal gangs and children. Okay, this is an Obama era policy. And one of the things that President Obama and the department and his Department of Justice were doing were realizing that African Americans were disproportionately being arrested and prosecuted for marijuana possession. Now, what a lot of people don't talk about is that the U.S. prison population is the lowest it's been in 20 years. Okay. The U.S. prison population is the lowest it's been in 20 years. It's down to 1.53 million as of December 2015. If you look at the end of the year Department of Justice report from December 2016, it talks about this, and Newsweek.com had an article talking about the U.S. prison population is 1.53 million. Okay. And let's pull up that article here, because when people talk about President Obama's legacy, nobody talks about the U.S. prison population is the lowest it's been in 20 years. It's not 2.3 million anymore, like they talk about in the documentary 13th. It's 1.53 million. Okay. So let's look at this article. Let's pull this up here so we can deal with facts and evidence. And I read the article from Newsweek.com. Ebony Magazine had an article about this. AOL.com had an article. But then I went and read the report from the Department of Justice. U.S. prison population exceeded 1.5 million in 2015. Okay, that's from December 29th, 2016, Newsweek.com. But when you read the article, it talks about how the U.S. prison population fell the most in almost 4 decades to 1.53 million inmates in 2015, resulting in the lowest rate of incarceration in a generation, the Department of Justice said on Thursday. This article is from December 29th, 2016. Isn't it interesting how President Obama does not get any credit for reducing the U.S. prison population at all? Isn't that? I just find that very strange. And when you read the article, it's largely due to his policies and policy changes that he made and his Department of Justice made. I just find that very interesting. Nobody talks about that, really. So isn't it interesting how people will talk about mass incarceration and blame all the mass incarceration on the Clintons, right? But then the U.S. prison population is the lowest it's been in 20 years, and nobody says anything about that. And it's because of President Obama and his policies largely. I just find that very interesting. And if you actually study the U.S. prison population, it didn't start rising in 1994 with the crime bill signed September 13, 1994. That goes back to the early 1970s, because Richard Nixon declared his war on drugs June 17th, 1971. Okay. And you go to the early 1970s, you see an increase in the U.S. prison population. States had already started passing longer, harsher sentences in the 1970s, and then going into the 1980s. Okay. All that stuff didn't start with the crime bill in 1994. Okay, so check that out also. Check out that article. All right, so let's go back to this one from AtlantaBlackStar.com. Okay. Now, once again, let's see, this is the type of information we deal with at the African History Network. We deal with facts and evidence. Proper documentation ends all conversation. This is the type of information I'll deal with in my 2-day lecture series coming up here in Detroit this weekend, Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th, at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe located at 12511 Woodward Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Oh, sorry, no, that's the old address. 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. That's the new Nanny's Knowledge Cafe. 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Free event. Come on out. The first day will deal with the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The revolutionary will not be televised on the television. That's day 1, Saturday, January 13th, 2018, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Free event, donations accepted. We know it's Dr. King weekend, so I have my presentation dealing with the distortion of Dr. King's legacy. Day 2, which is Sunday, January 14th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., same location, will deal with African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. Okay. Both of these DVD lectures are available for purchase at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can order them right now. We already have them on DVD. Okay, so let's continue here. All right, I want to go back to this article from AtlantaBlackStar.com. Okay, the move by so this deals with the change in the marijuana policy. Okay, U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. All right, let's see here. Where do we leave off? Okay, so the Obama administration in 2013 announced that it would not stand in the way of states that legalize marijuana so long as officials acted to keep it from migrating to places where it remained outlawed and out of the hands of criminal gangs and children. Jeff Sessions is rescinding that memo written by then Deputy Attorney General James M. Cole, C-O-L-E. Okay. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is rescinding that memo written by then Deputy Attorney General James M. Cole, okay, which had cleared up some of the uncertainty about how the federal government would respond as states began allowing sales for recreational medical purposes of marijuana, recreational and medical usages of marijuana. So the marijuana business has since become a sophisticated multi-million-dollar industry that helps fund schools, educational programs, and law enforcement. 8 states and the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for recreational usage, and California sales alone are projected to bring in $1 billion annually in tax revenue within several years. Attorney General Jeff Sessions' policy will let U.S. attorneys across the country decide what kinds of federal resources to devote to marijuana enforcement based on what they see as priorities in their districts, the people familiar with the decision said. Now, Jeff Sessions and some law enforcement officials in states such as Colorado blame legalization for a number of problems, including drug traffickers that have taken advantage of lax marijuana laws to hide in plain sight, illegally growing and shipping the drug across state lines where it can sell for much more. The decision was a win for marijuana opponents who had been urging Jeff Sessions to take action. Okay, there is no more safe haven with regard to the federal government and marijuana, but it's also the beginning of the story and not the end. end quote, said Kevin Sabet, president and CEO of Smart Approaches to Marijuana, who was among several anti-marijuana advocates who met with Jeff Sessions last month. Quote, this is a victory, is going to dry up a lot of institutional investment that has gone toward marijuana in the last 5 years, end quote. Now, threats of a federal crackdown have united liberals who object to the human cost of a war on marijuana with conservatives who see it as a states' rights issue. Some in law enforcement support a tougher approach, but a bipartisan group of senators in March of 2017 urged Attorney General Jeff Sessions to uphold existing marijuana policy. Others in Congress have been seeking ways to protect and promote legal marijuana businesses. Marijuana advocates quickly condemned Jeff Sessions' move as a return to outdated drug war policies that unduly affected minorities. Once again, marijuana advocates quickly condemned Jeff Sessions' move as a return to outdated drug war policies that unduly affected minorities. And we know that Jeff Sessions redeclared the war on drugs May 12, 2017 as well. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, quote, wants to maintain a system that has led to tremendous injustice and that has wasted federal resources on a huge scale, said Maria McFarland Sanchez Moreno, executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance. If Sessions thinks that makes sense in terms of prosecutorial priorities, he is in a very bizarre ideological state or a deeply problematic one, end quote. Okay, so you can read the rest of this article at AtlantaBlackStar.com, AtlantaBlackStar.com, AtlantaBlackStar.com. You can check that out also, and we'll give you the name of the article again. U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. U.S. to end policy that let legal pot flourish. Okay. All right. So we'll post the link to this article here on the thread of the broadcast here on Facebook. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. All right. Who on here is in the Detroit area? Okay. Come on out to the 2-day lecture series I'm doing this weekend at the new Nanny's Knowledge Cafe located at 71 Oakman Avenue in Detroit. It's Highland Park, 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. All right. So come check that out also. Okay, I want to go to this last story and then we'll get to this date in African American history. This last story deals with Michigan State University, and Michigan State University is going to create a database, an online slavery database. Okay. This story comes from theroot.com, and let's pull this one up here also. We talked about that. Michigan State University, and I live here in Detroit, so I'm very familiar with Michigan State University. They will receive nearly $1.5 million. Let's pull this up. They'll receive nearly $1.5 million to create a new online database that will allow folks to navigate the records of millions of enslaved people and their descendants. A boon for historians and African Americans who are interested in knowing more about their ancestry. Okay, this article is written by Angela Helm. This is from January 11th, 2018. So Michigan State recently announced a $1.47 million grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, which will facilitate the project. Quote, and the name of the project is called Enslaved, the People of the Historic Slave Trade. Enslaved, the People of the Historic Slave Trade. And this will be an online hub that links data collections from multiple universities on slavery and enslaved people. Okay. Now, according to MSU Today, which is their publication, MSU Today, by linking data collections from multiple universities, the website will allow people to search millions of pieces of slave data to identify enslaved individuals and their descendants from a central source. Users can also run analysis of enslaved populations and create charts and graphics. Okay. Quote, enslaved brings new digital tools and analytical approaches to the study of African slavery and the Atlantic slave trade, said project co-investigator Walter Hawthorne, a professor and chair of Michigan State University's Department of History. He goes on to say, by linking data compiled by some of the world's foremost historians, it will allow scholars and the public to learn about individuals' lives and to draw new, broad conclusions about processes that had an indelible impact on the world, quote unquote. So the article goes on to say the Enslaved Project is slated to take about 18 months and is the first phase of a multi-phase plan. Given the surge of interest in DNA ancestry, driven by the popularity of sites such as Ancestry.com and 23andMe, this should be welcome news for those African Americans who have found it difficult to find out more about their ancestors before 1850, because, of course, of the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so check out this article from theroot.com. Michigan State University receives almost $1,500,000 to create online slavery database. Okay, from theroot.com. And we'll post a link of that thread here again on the broadcast of here on Facebook Live also. Okay. All right. So some of your comments here on Facebook. Harvey asked, when will I be in Vegas again? I was in California. Wasn't in Vegas. I was in California. But if you want to, hey, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, African American History Month is coming up. Email me at info@africanhistorynetwork.com. Okay. info@africanhistorynetwork.com. You want Michael Imhotep to do a presentation for your organization. Okay. Email me at info@africanhistorynetwork.com, or go to our website, africanhistorynetwork.com. Also email me through the website. Okay. Picture behind me. That's Muhammad Ali knocking out Sonny Liston. All right. Okay, looking at some of your comments here. Angela Evans on Facebook said, and Obama made it known federal law would not actively pursue on states that were partial or fully legal regarding marijuana. Right. States that legalize marijuana medicinally or for medicinal purposes or for recreational purposes, the Obama administration backed off prosecuting people in those states that have marijuana as long as they obtained it legally. As long as obtained it properly, it wasn't in the hands of children and things like this. Okay. All right. Let's see. Friday morning, January 12th, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. We'll broadcast on Facebook Live. I'll be on David Bullock's show. We'll talk about my upcoming lecture series this weekend. And then Friday afternoon, between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. sometime there, I'll be on Cliff Russell's show once again. All right. So this date in African American history, January 11th, William D. McCoy of Indiana was appointed Minister of Liberia. This date in 1892. This date in 1954, Eugene Kinkle Jones, the first executive secretary of the National Urban League, died in New York. This date in 1954. In 1906, Eugene Kinkle Jones was one of the 7 co-founders of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Okay. And we know my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma, we just celebrated our Founders Day anniversary, January 9th, a couple of days ago. So happy Founders Day to my frat brothers. Let's see, this date in 1976, Hank Aaron, baseball legend, received the 60th NAACP Spingarn Medal this date in 1976 for his achievements in baseball for establishing the home run record, 715 home runs. And for his, he broke the home run record of 715. He ended up with 755 home runs. And for his outstanding sportsmanship, making him a good role model for young people, Hank Aaron would go on to hit 755 home runs. Okay. Let's look at January 10th. Let's look at history for January 10th. Let's see. Dr. George Washington Carver, scientist and discoverer of over 300 products from the peanut and sweet potato, is believed to have been born January 10th, 1864. And on January 10th, 1888, A.B. Blackburn, who was an African-American inventor, patented the railway signal, patent number 376362, January 10th, 1888. And January 10th, 1966, Julian Bond was denied a seat in the lower house of the Georgia state legislature because of his opposition to the Vietnam War. January 10th, 1966. Julian Bond was, however, seated 1 year later to date after national pressure and legal decisions in his favor. You can read more facts about this date in African history and African American history at yenoba.com, YENOBA, yenoba.com. Okay. All right. Okay. Maurice produced music. All right. Hey, Maurice, inbox me. And let me know, inbox me. We could talk about it. Inbox me on Facebook or email me info@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, info@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Eric said fraternities are the boule. It's always people who are not in a fraternity that run their mouths about fraternities and talk about what they don't know. Fraternities are not the boule. Boule is Sigma Pi Phi. Sigma Pi Phi tells you they are the boule. All fraternities and boules are not the same thing. Go do some research. There's always people that talk about fraternities and never been in one, don't know what the hell they're talking about, that run their mouths about fraternities and sororities. I just find that interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Go research Sigma Pi Phi on their website. They tell you they are the boule. All fraternities and sororities are not the boule. All right. And let's see here. Okay. Carmen said, thank you. Cameron Brown said, when will this be ready to use? Okay. Now, what are you talking about, Cameron? When will what be ready to use? Let me know. Oh, you're talking about the database? The database said about 18 months. The database from the article from theroot.com about Michigan State University, the slavery database, about 18 months. Okay. Pamela Day. Okay. How are you doing, Pamela? Carol McMurdy. Going back. All right. Looking at some of your comments here. Erica. Okay. Stacy. All right. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in as well. Hey, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. We have a lot of information. You can order my DVD lectures if you like the information that we share to help support the African History Network. This work is not easy. It helps support us, helps us stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay the bills, etc. We have documentaries there, like the 1804 documentary dealing with the history of the Haitian Revolution. We have all the elementary genocide documentaries. I'm in Elementary Genocide Part 3, Academic Holocaust. We've got all of my lectures there, like the racist history of the white national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. We've got African-American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. What is this? There's some duplicates. Okay, some of the same things. And, you know, I'm doing my lecture series in Detroit this coming weekend, Saturday, January 13th, Sunday, January 14th, at the new Nanny's Knowledge Cafe, 71 Oakman Avenue, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. both days. Information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We've got the Urban Kryptonite documentaries dealing with holistic health for African Americans as well. Okay. What was I about to bring up? I don't even know now. Okay. I was about to bring up something, but I don't know what it is. All right. So, okay, with that being said, we're going to get out of here. All right. All right. So, hey, remember at the African History Network? Oh, you know, I was trying to look and I was looking at some of the other stuff I had laid out for the show. Rest of the stuff we'll get to Sunday night. Hey, listen to the African History Network show on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Voice of Detroit, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Listen to me Friday morning. I'll be on David Bullock's show on 9:10 a.m., 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be on Cliff Russell's show later on between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. Friday, January 12th also. And rest of these topics we'll get to Sunday night because I've got to get out of here. Hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay. And I have new glasses. That's why I keep adjusting them. I got to go back and get them adjusted. Try and get used to these new glasses. Remember, a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. Right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.